welcome back to part 2 of Budget to Busted Katsu. By this point, hopefully you got a chance to play with the budget deck and understand what some of Katsu's strengths are. And that's Chef in the background. He's going to be here today. He's a little bit itchy with this time of year, so send him some scratches in the comments below. But hopefully you liked Katsu and are interested in expanding his arsenal and seeing what he can do with a little bit more gas in the tank. So in this video, we're going to go over some of the upgrades that I have in my deck. This is going to be my full personal list that I run. I made it to top 8 at a recent ProQuest with this list. It has served me well, and I think it's a competitive list that you can be proud of. Now, as always, metas change. There are cards in here that might not make it to your final deck list whenever you're watching this video. Prepare for the meta that you're in. Right now, we are in a warrior-heavy meta, so we will see cards like Cyclone Roundhouse, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but just letting you know, not every card you see here is a must-run. We also have cards that are coming out in part the Mist Veil next month. Those cards, I'm sure, will change this list. I'm sure if they print a ninja attack that has 7 power, you'll see it in this list as long as illusionists are around. So just be aware of what you're prepping for. But this is, at its base, what I would call a busted Katsu deck. So let's go, and first we are going to look at adding what I consider to be the big 3 of Flesh and Blood. And if you don't know these cards, you will soon. I promise you. If you stay in this game, you'll learn these cards very quickly. The first is Enlightened Strike, and Enlightened Strike as an additional cost to play Enlightened Strike, put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. So that is part of the cost, but it's one of the few ways that we are able to do a 2-card 7 in this deck. If you don't know what a 2-card 7 is, it means we're spending 2 cards to do 7 damage, to present 7. So that's 1 card that we need to put on the bottom of our library and 1 card that we play. That's very important because late game, typically that involves blocking with 3 cards. If you don't have the momentum, but are able to Arsenal and Enlightened Strike and block out just enough so you keep 1 card and you're able to throw this 7 attack, if they're at low enough health and they have to block out everything, let's say they're at 1 health, right? Now they have to block with 3 cards. If they block with 3 cards, we're going to win, because we're just going to start coming back in with our Kodachis every turn. It's going to be for 1. They have to block both of those, and then we come in. If we have 2 4s in a row, or even a 4 and then a 1, we're likely winning. So Enlightened Strike is a must run in this deck. I actually tried to take it out for a while, and I found that it's too good. You have to run it. Let's look at Command and Conquer next. Command and Conquer says defense reactions can't be played to Command and Conquer's Chain Link. If Command and Conquer hits a hero, destroy all cards in their arsenal. What can be said about this card that hasn't already been said by the Flesh and Blood community a million times? It's a good card. This is a popper, which is one of the reasons we run it. It is not a card that we run in every matchup, but in defense reaction heavy matchups, in matchups where we're worried about, for example, against a Viserai, I would be worried that they are going to Arsenal not become the Arknight, but Arknight Ascendancy, and then they're going to play a Slogism 1 turn. If that's the kind of deck I'm playing against, I want to make sure that I'm pushing threats to their arsenal and disrupting that plan, because being explosive might not be enough in a matchup like that. And speaking of explosive, let's talk about Art of War. Art of War is clearly a great card. You get to choose 2 modes when you play it. The first is attack action cards you control get +1 and +1 this turn. The next attack action card you play this turn gains Go again. Until the end of turn, you may defend with attack action cards from Arsenal. You may banish an attack action card from your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. So this is one of the ways that we can make Katsu have turns that just kind of go off. It's just these are the ways we have turns that are just you lose turns, right? I'm going to be presenting 40 damage to you. You're at 20 health. You lose, right? You're not going to be able to handle all of these attacks. So it's a very important card in the list. Sometimes we play the second mode. Sometimes we play the third mode. But most of the time we play first and last. I get so comfortable with Art of War just saying Art of War first and last that I might not even know what I'm doing when I do it. And I need to be careful because I might say first and last when I don't have an attack action card in my hand. But it's a great card. The Go Again ability enables our Bonds of Ancestry turns if we don't have another source of Go Again. But let's say we have a Tunic counter floating. We use our Tunic counter to play Art of War. We can give +1 and play Whelming Gust Wave with Go Again for 4 into Bonds of Ancestry and begin that chain, right? So that's one of the ways we are able to work around not having Go Again. What I would consider to be number 4 of the big 3 right now is Warmonger's Diplomacy. I run 2 of these in my deck. It's common knowledge with Katsu that blue 0-cost block 3s are good. Very good. They enable your Kodachis. They block for a higher value than most ninja cards. And we want to run these. This also hoses decks like Azalea. Both Rangers, actually, right now. It can be pretty bad for Warriors. It can be difficult for Runeblades to play around. If you've been playing for a while, you've seen what this card could do. It single-handedly shut down Chain in Living Legend. I believe he's making a comeback as they, I believe, restricted this card in that format. But this is a video for Classic Constructed where we can run 3. I choose to run 2. I want to see attacks in my hand, and it can be at times disappointing to draw into this card. At times it steals you the tempo back, but personally I found 3 to be too many for Katsu. Let's talk about Fandale Spring Tunic. When do we run this? Now, we've seen that we can have these insanely powerful turns with Hardened Cross Straps. It really is my preferred approach to playing Katsu. It's basically having an extra card in your hand. But Spring Tunic is very important for games that are going to go long. We get a lot more value if we think we're going to activate this, even if we activate it 3 times. So if we think that our game is going to go 9 rounds or longer, then Tunic has more value. It's also a pretty good thing to have in our board just because it blocks. Currently, there really aren't any ninja equipment pieces for Katsu in the chest that are great at blocking. There is the Blazing Yari, I think is how it's pronounced, but quite frankly, it's not very good. I believe it gets +4 if it's the 4th chain link or higher that it's blocking, and in this meta, we don't see chain links often go that high. Even on Blood Rush Bellows turns, we're often seeing 3 attacks. 4 is not really something we're preparing for at the moment. So let's move on to another card that is also a card that allows us to have explosive turns. And I want to briefly talk about when this card doesn't work. When this card doesn't work, it's the worst card in your deck because there is a possibility of banishing a Flick Flack off of this card, and then not having the resources to pitch for your Surging Strike, and you don't have a natural follow-up, so you might have, let's say the other card in your hand is Warmongers, and your plan was, I'm going to either hit a Whelming Gustwave off the top, or I'm going to hit, and then I'm going to discard a card for Katsu. If you're planning around that, this is going to be the worst card in your deck. It will be 2 cards for no value. But I like to arsenal this card and play it when I have a natural line. If I don't think I'm going to have a natural line soon, if I feel like I've already seen too many Surging Strikes, or I've played all of my Descendant Gust Waves, so I won't have cards that naturally have Go Again, then I'm going to be pitching with this card, or I'm going to be blocking with it. But if I do see an opportunity where this is going to guarantee me at least 3 value off of a line I have, if I know I have a Bonds of Ancestry line, I can guarantee this will be 3 value. I'm good playing it. If it hits an additional Bonds of Ancestry, maybe that just added 7 value. Maybe it added 12. When it's good, it's great, but when it's bad, it's the worst card in your deck, which is why I run exactly 1 and no more than that. Let's move on to another card that came out in Heavy Hitters. We talked about Salt the Wound. Now let's look at Salt the Wound's alter ego, Tenacity. When this attacks, it gets plus X, where X is the number of defending cards on the combat chain. I love this card for Katsu. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck, especially in this meta where equipment block is so important. There's so much of it. Those equipment pieces are cards. They do buff this attack. And we can have a couple of really fun interactions. Much like Salt the Wound, we can use Pouncing Links to find this. But even better than Salt the Wound, we can present a Dishonor. Going Surging Strike, Descendant Gust Wave, Bonds of Ancestry, targeting a Dishonor, and when our Bonds of Ancestry hits, we can break our mask for Tenacity and give Dishonor Go Again with our boots. Why would we do that? Because it is likely they've already blocked with something. If it is a hero that cares about Dishonor, we are now saying you can block Dishonor, but you're going to take 6, 8. You're going to get mollywopped if you block Dishonor. But if you don't block Dishonor, if you don't block it out fully, you're going to lose your hero power. So we present the lose-lose with this. One of my favorite interactions. When it works, it feels great. And the floor on this card is not bad. Oftentimes, I'm pitching it if I see it when I don't feel that I'm ready to use it. If I feel that I don't like to arsenal this card, quite frankly. Sometimes I do arsenal it and it lines up, but I personally would prefer to draw into this card and just have it work. I don't want it sitting too long in my arsenal if my opponent isn't blocking. So let's continue on and look at Cyclone Roundhouse. Now, I have an interesting relationship with this card. I love it and I hate it. Why do I hate it? Because it costs 2 and Spinning Wheel Kick costs 1. So to get this combo line active, you need 3 resources. You have to pitch a blue, which means that's probably all you're doing. Maybe one other attack. Why do I love it? Because it says at the beginning of the reaction step, banish a random defending card from each chain link. That is one of my favorite things to do in this game. Banish from previous chain links is so good. When you're able to get this on a Valiant Dynamo, if you can do that early game, I guarantee you this card just had 15 points of value, like out of nowhere. So it's fantastic when it works, but it's awkward to play. However, there is another benefit of this. You cannot block this card unless you do it in the reaction step or if you overblock it. So if you try and put two cards in front of this, one of those is getting blocked, you're likely still taking a hit. So, or rather, it's not getting blocked, it's getting banished. So that's an interaction that I love. But like I said, you present 9 damage for 3 resources if you're able to go spinning wheel click, cyclone, roundhouse, but it's an awkward line. It's often, I find that more often than not, the card that I need to pitch to be able to play cyclone roundhouse is the card that I would have to discard for Katsu to tutor it. So it's not my favorite card, but it has a purpose. In this deck, we run it as a one of. Now, let's start looking at some equipment. Mask of Momentum. I mentioned earlier I don't run Mask of Momentum. I still don't. This card and the next card are cards that I don't have in my list currently. But if you're serious about playing Katsu, I think you should pick them up. When we're in a meta that is ally heavy, Mask of Momentum is very good. Mask of Momentum is very good even when we're not in that meta. It's my personal preference to play Pouncing Links just because I like to have control over what I am getting into my hand and allow myself to have these giant pop-off turns the way I want them to play out. But being able to draw a card on the 3rd or higher chain link in a row to hit from an attack action is really good when making your opponents block awkwardly. So there's a lot of fun that you can have with this, just in forcing your opponents to block the second Kadachi or, whatever it is. It's a great card, and even if it's not the most powerful in today's meta, it's worth picking up. Now, Standing Order is another card, excuse me, that came out from in heavy hitters. And when I saw this card, I was in every Discord I know being like, this is gas. This is the best card they've ever printed for Katsu that isn't a ninja card. This is exactly what he needed. It's so good. I love it. The reason I felt that way. Okay. It's a 0 cost. We can activate Katsu with it. It's a 3 block. We like to have more of those. Katsu's worst matchups typically tend to be disruption matchups. Not his absolute worst. Those are probably Guardian, or Riptide. And I would say those are disruptive decks, right? But all of the matchups he struggles with share disruption. To protect your arsenal by putting it on the bottom of your deck is very good in a deck that shreds through their cards. And we will be shredding through our cards if we're having our turns go the way we want them to. We want to be burning cards from our hand, from our graveyard, from our deck. Just keep the whole machine moving, spending those cards from deck. So it's very important that when someone plays a CNC, we're able to tuck that away and save it for later. It doesn't seem like all that much, but it is. Also, when you tuck your arsenal, this now is a 6 power, making it a popper, and it blocks for 5. Why is 5 such an important block? Because many of Azalea's cards attack for 5 if she has not pumped them. So off of a Warmonger's turn, if she tries to attack with a Remorseless, I believe that's only 5. So this would cover it. Now, I have found that in most situations, this card wasn't doing all that I wanted it to do, specifically as a popper. When I had it and wanted to use it as a popper, I was facing a Prism who had a Herald of Triumph, making it so that this, even with its pump, would block and have a power of 5 and not pop. Also, I found Prism is an interesting deck. We still need to sort of figure out the best approach playing against her, but typically I need cards in my arsenal if I'm going to win that matchup. Specifically, I really like Double Strike. So let's continue and look at some of the cards we cut. One of them being Double Strike. Why did I cut one Double Strike? Because it has a 2 block. We want to start adding more 3 blocks into this deck, giving it more defensive power, and quite frankly, we don't need 3. They only really threaten 2 damage. Now, I've had really great Double Strike turns before. They're wonderful for closing out a game when it starts to get really low and each point of damage matters. Katsu does a really nice job. If you've got Double Strikes and you've got blue zeros and you're just trying to tick away at them, Double Strikes are fantastic. But I think 2 is plenty. We're going to save some room for some of the other cards that might not be as sexy, but are important, like Warmongers, for example. I took out Flying Kicks. Flying Kicks get their buff if they're the 3rd attack action in a chain, but it costs 2, right? So that means we have to have a 3-card hand, because unless we have a Tunic counter up, we're not going to be able to pay for it off of Kadachi's. And when it comes to those 7 powers, you know, the Enlightened Strike does it much better. And it's modal. It can give us an arsenal if we need it, or we can just give it go again if we think we can hit and activate our Katsu. And if that's our game plan, then Enlightened Strike is better for that reason. Razor Reflex is also out. Now, if you want to keep Razor Reflex in the list, I understand. I think it works, but take a look at the Katsu cost curve at some time. There's a lot more 2-power attacks than you think, or rather 2 cost attacks. Bonds of Ancestry and Surging Strike are both 2 cost. So Razor Reflex doesn't work with those. Our Command and Conquers are going to be 2 cost. Won't work with those. So I don't really think Razor Reflex needs to be in this list. Now, it definitely can win you games. Maybe run one of them. But personally, in fact, if I were to take anything out of this list, I wouldn't take out the Ancestral Harmony for this because we need those blues. But I'm sure there's a red somewhere that we can take out. In fact, maybe it's one of the 3 spinning wheel kicks. Okay. Next, we have Reinforce the Line. Reinforce the Line is good, but quite frankly, we need our cards that block to do a little bit more, which is why I think Command and Conquer is better because it's a popper. As far as getting around evasive defensive turns, we have Art of Wars, which allow us to buff the defensive value of our cards. So I love Reinforce the Line, but this one just, I couldn't squeeze it in this list. Wage Gold we're taking out because Wage Gold was really only in this deck because it is a 7-power attack. I still like Wage Gold. I still think it's an interesting piece of tech to try out. I don't think we've, as a community, really given it enough of a look. So that's something that if you really like it, please let me know. I want to hear from you. If you've played Wage Gold and you said, wow, like that changed Katsu for me, that's so much better than I ever realized, let me know. We're also taking out the Lord of Wind line. Mugenshi release and Lord of Wind. We don't want to get to a point where shuffling cards back into our deck matters with this version of the deck. We want to have a triple Bonds of Ancestry turn with Art of War and just say, you're not going to get me to fatigue. I'm not going to run out of resources. I'm burning them quick, but I'm going to knock your teeth out if you're waiting for that. That's really what we want to do here. Likewise, I took out Visit the Floating Dojo. I want Visit the Floating Dojo to be good, but I just don't think that it is. And part of that is that it doesn't block. In fact, most of that is that it doesn't block. Now, I can see this being really good on an Art of War turn. You know, if you're able to play Tunic Resource for the Art of War, you can guarantee you're going to draw into your Surging Strike and your Descendant, and you keep a Bonds in hand. Maybe try it as a one of if you want to play it, and try and play around the Art of War turns. If it's not an Art of War turn, you're probably just going to want to pitch this card. It's not worth playing this card just to get 2 cards on the top of your deck if you're not going to draw them right away, especially because Katsu's on hits are going to make you shuffle the deck if you choose to activate them. So this deck is pretty simple. But when we think about making changes to it, there are things we want to keep in mind. What is the meta tempo? What I mean by that is, how much does this meta like to block? How slow do they want to take this game? Do they want to save their threats for the end game and block early? Or is this a matter where we're just going to throw our hand at each other as soon as we start the game? That's going to dictate some of the decisions you make when you're looking at swapping in cards in and out. Our blue count is very important for Katsu. I do not think you should run less than 16 blues in a Katsu deck ever. Now, if you want to run more than 18, just be careful. The density of our threats is getting slimmer the more we're putting in resource cards. But if you're running less than 16, I think you need to lay off the gas a little and start putting in some resources, because you're going to want to be able to attack with your Kodachis and Surging Strike without having to pitch multiple cards. If you pitch 2 cards to play a Surging Strike, your turn is significantly worse. As I think I've mentioned with Bonds of Ancestry, sometimes that's like 8 damage worse, because that's a Bonds of Ancestry activation you don't get to have, and it's the Flusterfist that was going to come in off of that. So we want to be able to only pitch 1 card and still do everything we want to do. Likewise, 0-cost cards. I have here greater than 35. That must be what's in this list. That makes sense to me. It's been a minute since I put this slideshow together, so I don't know how dogmatic I am on this one. I feel much more strongly about our blue count, but 0-cost cards, you absolutely want to be able to, on any turn, present a Katsu activation. It's very important to constantly be able to activate Katsu. It gives you the flexibility to just say, no, I just want to push damage here. Or, no, I know that what I need next is, even if it's like a blue Descendant Gust Wave, because you're just trying to play into your bonds, right? You want to be able to have Katsu ready to be activated at all times. Let's talk now about block cards. We are not a deck that likes to block, but like all decks in Flesh and Blood, we have to block. We're a deck that was born to shit and forced to wipe, right? So we just want to attack, but sometimes we have to just say, all right, you know what? I'm going to lose way too much tempo here. I'm going to have to block with 3 cards. I'll keep my blue and just throw 2 Kodachis. It's a very common thing that happens. If you have 3 2 blocks in your hand, you might as well have an IP penalty if you're planning on keeping a card. you have 3 less value than if you had 3 blocks. So it's an entire card's worth that you are missing out on if you draw into all of your 2 blocks. But we have to run those. So when we're looking at our deck, we need to make sure, are we keeping a balance of these that's healthy, or are we beginning to get a little bit slim on our block value, because that is a dangerous place to be. Like any meta, you should consider what the prevalence of arcane damage and illusionists are. I've mentioned my thoughts on illusionists a couple times throughout this video, about how I think that the way to deal with Prism is to pop her ward and, to a lesser extent, blocking her heralds. Now, you will hear a lot of people that just say, block the first herald and then take out Spectra. Prism runs a pretty aggro plan into Katsu. Typically, I've seen Prisms bring in their chest piece that isn't Vestige of Soul, Empyrean Rapture. So I think we get more value out of just taking away their angels off the board by just attacking them with more attacks than they have cards in hand. That's how I approach that matchup. Arcane damage. This is a deck that we do run AB3. I run AB3 until Kano's gone. Why? I don't want to lose because of one card. That's all it is. I don't want to show up into a match against Kano and say, I know I could have won that game if I had AB3. I just, it is so much more hard, so much harder emotionally to lose to a Kano when you bring AB2 than it is AB3, because you just feel dumb. You feel like, man, did I really need that third copy of whatever it was? Or could I have just put in the arcane barrier that would have almost secured this match as a win for me? It's not insanely heavily favored for Katsu on AB3 against Kano, but it is favored. I think it's very favored. I don't know how to quantify that, but I know that I played multiple Kanos at Philadelphia Battle Hardened, and I won all of those games because I brought my AB. Anyway, that's our busted Katsu deck. I will show some gameplay, but I also am going to show a little teaser of what we can do with Zen. So stick around to the end of the video, and you'll get to see some fun interactions that we can do with Zen if we draw the perfect hand. And I will let you know now, the damage threatened that turn is over 500. So watch out and make sure to pick up your Marvel Tigers now. Anyway, let's get into some Katsu gameplay. Okay, here we are against a Dash.io. In this matchup, we typically want to go first. We're going to take out a Winds of Eternity to add in Assault the Wound. We are running 63 cards because we ran our Command and Conquers. All right, here we are. In this matchup, they are going first, which is the preferred position for each player against a Dash.io. We're both fighting to see who gets to go first. Dishonor is a great card in this matchup, but they are fast enough that it doesn't always necessarily end a game. Their no blocks put us in a position where we can be more aggressive than we might normally be. Hopefully they, I was just gonna say, hopefully they don't just give this to us. The only card I want in my graveyard right now is Fluster Fist, and so the way that I can do the most damage here I have Fluster Fist or Whelming Gust Wave, but they don't both have Go Again, and I'd rather have a Whelming. I'm sorry, I'd rather have a Whelming in my deck. So we are going to pitch this, then we'll pitch the yellow bonds just to squeak out as much damage as we can. Um, and actually, you know what? There's an argument for doing, and I am going to do this. I'm going to play the bonds this turn by pitching the Fluster Fist and playing the bonds. That way, we always have the ability to access that second piece if we think we can string together multiple Bonds of Ancestries in a turn. We still don't have things for the second bonds to target, though. So that's what we're looking for in this next hand. Do we have a blue Fluster Fist that we can block with? Do we have a Dishonor that we can block with? Something that we can put in the graveyard that will add value. This is a good equipment suite to see when you're Katsu. I'd rather see them run Crown of Providence than Balance of Justice, because it means that our Art of War turns, which we are about to have, aren't too punishing. We'll just take damage here, and we'll kind of put it in the heart of the cards. We'll pitch the I guess, I mean, if we pitch the yellow one, we get to play both. I'd like to have that extra resource floating, so we'll do that. Okay, we are going to take quite a bit of damage this turn. We're looking at 4 here, probably 6 next, also with Go Again. Apologies for my allergies. Oh, wonderful. So this is 3. Now, I'm actually, in response to this, I do think Art of War is the correct play. Just they're gonna rick our hand if we don't. So buff, draw. Now probably really what I should have done there is I definitely should have played it out enough to see if I needed to defend with my arsenal. So I have to show all of my cards. And they're going to want to pull out the Command and Conquer. Or the Warmongers. Okay, yeah, I thought that could be a choice as well. Because it's not going to be blocking. Thought they had already played one. So they forgot to use this other attack. Oh, pistol, that's fine. Oh. So we do have a 7 damage turn here with an Art of War. It's not really what we want to see to get back into the game, and I'm almost positive they're just going to give us this arsenal here, or they're going to sink it. with their Crown of Providence. I still think that I prefer this to um, Balance of Justice, but a 5-card hand is pretty gross. Okay. This gives us the ability to flick flack this first one and cover it, and prevent the next one, and hopefully bait out a boom grenade from the top. Nope, they're not giving it to us, so that's fine. They don't have anything on top. They wanted to instant there. So for blue, they can Pulse Wave again. They have enough to Pulse Wave here, which means I think it means we just let them have this. If they do Pulse Wave, they will take the Enlightened Strike, and we will Kodachi, and pass, hoping to set up a more powerful turn later. Yeah. Yes! Oh boy, we were correct. And they hit another one. Okay. Or no, we were incorrect, rather. We just have to preserve life here. Let's get the value from Flick Flack and move on. There's the Teklo core. I think we can bait out the first block from Teklo Foundry here. Not really bait. I think they're going to give it to us. Something's going on with Talishar here, so we're just gonna... Talishar's giving it the old college try. I think it's a totally fair idea to take this if you dash. She pushes so much damage each turn. Love to... Oh, hate to see it. I was just about to say, we love to see it. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, if they have 3 0-cost boosts. Oh, we're in bad shape. Even if one of them's a 1-cost, they can do it. Oh, and we finally have the turn that we want. Okay. Like I said, even if one of them's a 1-cost. this is where we look at our graveyard. We say, okay, we have the Whelming Gust Wave, so we can go Surging, Descendant, Bonds for the Whelming, get a Whelming, break the boots. We banish the Flusterfist on hit to get a Dishonor. Bonds for the Flusterfist, play the Dishonor, play Flusterfist. Okay, this is the second one. They showed a yellow one first, I believe. I do wish they would play a little bit faster, but Dash has a lot to think about. So I understand, but okay. Interesting. We can give both of these here. We are going to crack them next turn anyway. And there is no way that they can play the max velocity right now. They have spent the resources that they would need to do it. They cannot use the card in hand to play it because they have not boosted 3 times. Okay. That's trouble. Luckily, we are well equipped to handle it. It really sucks that we don't have a good graveyard built up, but we are going to mask for likely the Dishonor. Okay. This is a max velocity. One of these is a max velocity. So right now they're in a position where their hand is incentivizing them to block. For the most part, it will waste some Teklo resources, however. So they can see the top card of their deck. Maybe they can get some use out of it, but interesting that they are not defending here. I don't understand that move. Okay. So I can now go Bonds and get a Whelming. I can then go Bonds, play a Whelming, target Bonds with Bonds, just to have the biggest damage turn possible here. We're not going to go for our Dishonor. Right here, we're going to go for Whelming Gust Wave. And then so we now have a Whelming Gust Wave we can play. We go Bonds of Ancestry, and we target Bonds of Ancestry. So we'll have 2 Bonds of Ancestries. Then we go Whelming Gust Wave, Bonds of Ancestry, Whelming Gust Wave, Bonds of Ancestry, Flusterfist. What do we do with this? This is the... Okay, we do grab the Dishonor because even if we were to grab the bonds, we don't have the additional Flusterfist we need in order to really clap back this turn the way we want to. This here is an important one to say yes to. Okay. This is the fun point of the game where we get to find out how many Katsus they've played before. I do not see a way they live through this turn. A triple bonds turn when you're under 20 life and your hero doesn't block. I think we've got this. I'd galvanize right now if I were them. At least on one of these hits. You're not going to use this for anything. This doesn't have... If you're not in Evos, this doesn't have... I guess this isn't in Evo. It's not even a base. That action is not good yet. Maybe it is. Maybe someone can show me why that action is good, but equipping it to another equipment zone... I mean... I think this is the game here. If they survive, they are really good at Flesh and Blood. We have another 12 coming with the ability to pump it to 13. So we've got 16 more that they have to block. If they want to block out all of the damage we can present, they have to block 16 more. That hurts a lot for them. That's brutal. They need to pitch to get something back. They can galvanize, but I mean, yeah. And that was the wrong thing to galvanize. Of all the things, you know, what resources can you use when you're dead? At least with that, you have another item. I doubt they do, but if you did, pitch the item, get a card back. That's at instant, so... Did I do that right? What did I just grab? Grabbed a Flusterfist. Why did they... So, I don't really know... I don't think they ever were going to be able to survive that turn. Good game, Dio. Yeah, hopefully this gives people an idea of the power that Katsu has. And hopefully it makes you want to play the hero. There's some finessing that goes into triple bonds turns, you know, setting them up and trying to get your opponent to block incorrectly. But at the end of the day, it goes burr. And I love the deck. I hope you enjoy playing it and you are able to take it to the highest competitive level that your heart desires. Thanks for sticking around with this video. As a little treat, I decided to throw in a little bit of testing with the Zen Tamer of Purpose, the new ninja from Part the Mistveil. This is going to be an absolutely crazy line that will win any game, but it is 100% magical Christmas land. This should never happen. But just because it can, let's go through it. So here I have Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, Faendal's Spring Tunic with its counter ready, Breaking Scales, and here is going to be a Mind State of the Tiger. We're gonna have gold represent our tigers just because they're not showing up on Tabletop Simulator today. So we'll use gold to represent our tigers. In hand, we have the Sacred Art Jade Tiger Domain, which is a legendary Zen card. I don't believe it's a Zen specialty, but what it does is, let's see what it does. Oh no, I know there's a way to zoom right in on this. So if you played another blue this turn, you choose 3, otherwise you choose 1, and the 3 modes are create 2 Crouching Tigers in your hand. Crouching Tigers get +1 this turn, and Transcend, which turns this card into Chi, which can be pitched for Chi or basic resources, and it will pitch for 3 of them. We also have a blue Snatch, which on hit draws a card. We have Orahan of Mystic Tenets. This is an interesting one. It's 4 resources, and it draws 2 cards, but if Chi was pitched to play it, it draws 3 instead. And finally, we have Roar of the Tiger. Create a Crouching Tiger in your hand. Crouching Tigers you control gain +1 this turn. So let's go through what I would do, and first we're going to need to take a look at our arsenal. I have stacked my deck here, so I should know what is coming up, and if I don't get it right, we're going to fix it, because I want to show you the absolute craziest turn I could come up with Zen from what we have spoiled so far. It's not really, this isn't what you're going to see in a game. This is just something that theoretically could happen. So at the start of turn, we would have Mind State of the Tiger pop, and we would get a Crouching Tiger in our hand. Let's also go over Path Well Traveled real quick. Target attack gets go again. If you played another blue card this turn, Transcend, which is why we start with with blue Snatch. So we're going to play a blue Snatch, and now we have played a blue card, which means we can give this go again, and it transcends. So we're going to flip it that way so we know that it transcends. Let's say that this hits. We draw a card, and we draw a Roar of the Tiger. Okay. Now we have 2 Roars, a Crouching Tiger, some Chi. We can then play the Sacred Art Jade Tiger Domain and choose all 3 modes, getting this back into our hand, giving Tigers +1. This is where we're going to count the Tiger base power. This is where we're going to count how many are on the chain. And then we're going to make 2 Tigers in our hands. So we did have to pitch the Chi we got from this card, Path Well Traveled, in order to play Jade Tiger. Okay. We can then use our Tunic resource and pitch Chi to play Orahan, drawing 3 cards. So we're going to get a blue pitch, an Art of War, and an Art of War. So right now, we have 3 Crouching Tigers, 2 Roars, a blue pitch, and 2 Art of Wars. I think you'll be able to see where we're going with this, but let's just start off by playing these 2 Roar of the Tigers. We'll get them out of the way of things. So Tigers base power is going to be 3. Okay, we can put these in our grave, and we'll pick up 2 more Tigers in our hand. Now, what we can do is we can pitch and choose first and last mode on Art of War, which, if you are not familiar with the card, first mode is attack actions you control get +1 this turn. And last mode is that we banish an attack action card from our hand and we draw 2 cards. So tigers will get an additional +1, and we will banish a tiger from our hand and we will draw. Whoa. Sorry about that. We will draw. I just want 1. We will draw a predatory streak and a predatory streak. Then, with the, let's see here, we've got 2 floating. We'll spend 1 to do the same thing. Again, we'll do another Art of War, banishing a tiger. That gets this stronger, and we draw 2 cards. Okay. This is why I said this is not a hand that you should expect to see. We're going to use this final resource, and we're going to play our 3rd Art of War. Banish a tiger. Draw 2. We get our 2 tiger swipes. Now, when we play our 3 predatory streaks, we will make 9 tigers. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So the base power of a tiger is 5. I'm sorry, it's 6. And we are going to attack with 11 of them, right? So we'll attack with 11. I'm pulling out my calculator here because I actually didn't do this right the first time I did it. I did not calculate the +1 from the Jade Tiger domain. So we're going to put all those there. We have +6, right? So 66 is what we're going to be able to do with 11 tigers on the chain. So we're just going to move these guys and say, I want to pick up all of these. So all 11 are on the chain. Then we attack with Tiger Swipe for 7. We'll go ahead and we'll pump it to 8. And we'll say that hits. So we will make 11 more. In fact, maybe we can just get some dice out for this. Or we just do some text. No, I don't like that. Okay. So we have 11 more tigers here, which means we are up to a count of 22. Let's say when that hit, we made another 11 and we activated Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, right? So I'm going to 2 + 7. So right now, after all of these come through, we are currently at 140 because we used our breaking scales. Okay? We are then going to make, well, we activate our pouncing links. So let me go search for Tiger Swipe. Oh, and this whole chain, by the way, could be made even bigger with ancestral empowerments. I didn't want to overcomplicate it, though. But yeah, so the numbers do get even bigger than this. But let's just go with what we have so far. We've hit with 22 tigers when we play our Tiger Swipe from Banish from the Pouncing Links. We will then make 22 more, and so we will have 44. Okay. We have 44. Obviously, you see where this is going. We then throw this here, making 44 more, and we will go to 88. Here, let's just clear this. We are at 88 tigers. If I did 88 times 6, I'm at 528. Then I'm going to add 8 and 7 and 7, and I'm at 550. And if I added the 2 from Snatch, plus 3 from the amount of it we could get off of those ancestral empowerments, this turn can be 555 damage. Call a judge. Call a judge. They've stacked their deck. This shouldn't happen. But theoretically, it can. And quite honestly, I think this is maybe just scratching the surface of what Zen's going to be able to do. It seems like more Tiger support is going to make something like this very possible. Now, a big player in this was obviously the Orahan of Mystic Tenants, drawing us 3 cards. We don't know how difficult this will be. It is a 1-of in the deck. And 3 Predatory Streaks, all of them hitting. And we hit all 3 Art of Wars, and we hit 2 Roar of the Tigers. I could not think of a way where we would be able to draw into that final Roar of the Tiger, but if we did, it would, this would multiply quite a bit because this would be up to 7. This first one would be 12, which means we would go 12 plus 12 is 24. 24 plus 24 is 48. And then 48 plus 48, 96. So it would be quite a bit bigger. But hopefully you've enjoyed seeing what ninjas are capable of in this video. And I look forward to being able to make a deck tech on Zen when we have the final spoilers released, because I love ninjas. I love being bald. Look at this boy. Look at that boy. Let's get a bird's eye view. Wow. Who doesn't want to look like that? I do. I like the way I look. Anyway, hopefully you get to see what we're capable of, us ninja players, and yeah, I look forward to seeing what people are able to come up with for this deck. Please let me know your craziest line you're able to come up with in the comments below. Thanks, guys.